stupid, you can just go ahead and tell me.
We are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. His name is Dave McOmie, and he wrote a book July 1st, 2021 titled Safecracker, a chronicle of the coolest job in the world. And currently it has 44 five-star reviews on Amazon. I've read the book. I literally devoured the book. I thought it was fascinating. Really kind of a first-person account of somebody who's been in this interesting career for decades and shared a lot of kind of individual personal stories and kind of showed me how this kind of this little subset of the commercial world operates. So it was really fascinating. Dave is editor-at-large at the International Safecracker and is the author of 24 books on safes and vaults, and is a member of the Safe and Vault Technicians Hall of Fame. He holds a master's degree in philosophy from the University of Washington and resides in the Evergreen State with his wife and children. But again, the title of the book is Safecracker by Dave McOmie. So Dave, are you there?
I'm here. Glad to be here, William.
Awesome. Well, thanks for agreeing to the interview. For people maybe who not have heard, this is your first book. Can you talk you had this long career in safecracking. Like, how did it start and how did you get involved in this kind of curious job, this curious career?
It is an oddball profession. I'll give you that. My interest was sparked early on, oddly, by a TV show. In the late 1960s, Robert Wagner starred as Alexander Mundy, a jewel thief. He was rescued from prison by the equivalent of our CIA and tasked with burglarizing for them, to state secrets and what have you. Well, I was absolutely captivated by Robert Wagner's character, Alexander Mundy. I would watch the show, I would tape record it, and the audio. I loved it so much, I would tape record the audio to the show and listen to it at night without any video. Well, coincidentally, the lady next door to us, I can't recall now if her purse was lost or stolen. In any event, she had to have a locksmith come out to the house, open her car, and make keys to both. Well, my eyes were pie plates when I saw this locksmith van pull up, and I went outside and just sheepishly introduced myself to him. He was in the back of the truck getting his tools ready. And, it was one of those lucky things. Had he been a gruff individual and just waved me away, I probably never would have ended up in this business. But he was the nicest, most genial man. Invited me into the van, and once he got the locks in there to show me how the tumblers worked. But the most fascinating part was watching him go up to the car and to the house and pick the locks. I was just absolutely riveted, and from that day forward, I knew what my career was going to be.
So very young, like you started off in locksmithing. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, back in those days, that's 30 years ago, probably, right? Is that it?
50 years ago.
Oh, wow. So,
yeah.
So you've seen a lot of changes technologically from the beginning of your career to the present. Like I think you wrote in your book, you're semi-retired. Can you talk about how, so you started out kind of in the locksmithing arena, but moved to safe and safecracking. Can you talk about how that transformation kind of occurred?
Sure. There's a common misconception out there that locksmiths are safecrackers and safecrackers are locksmiths. They're very different. Now, many locksmiths are good safecrackers. Most are not. A few safecrackers are good locksmiths. Most are not. They're just different areas of specialty underneath the same umbrella. I knew instantly, after spending maybe a month at Mr. Corey's shop. His name was Eugene Corey. I always called him Mr. Corey. I found safes and vaults way more interesting than cutting keys. So I gravitated quickly to that side. And after a few years with him, he made clear that if I wanted to continue and learn about safes and vaults, I probably shouldn't be in general locksmithing. I should go to work for a large safe and vault company, which I begrudgingly eventually did. There was no other way to get better skills without going where they were needed.
Right. It's really fascinating because you really kind of did a lot of traveling and going to different places on short notice you tell this story in your book, like they thought you were so young at some safe locking thing, they couldn't comprehend you were there. So you started, can you retell that story? I think you was like something happened. You work a lot with law enforcement too, right? But can you tell about that story?
Yeah, as a kind of a soft libertarian, law enforcement jobs are among my least favorite because I don't think it's our business if somebody wants to smoke pot and have pot in their safe. But it's part of the job. When law enforcement or the DEA brings a ring down, whether it's drugs or counterfeiters or whatever, and they have a safe, well, they need the safe opened, and that's what they hire me to do. Now, I'm old now, but for a very long time, from the time I was about 15 until the time I was about 35, I looked like I was 15. So even in my early 20s, when I would show up on a job, people would often ask if my dad was going to show up soon. Or they couldn't hardly comprehend that this kid was going to open the safe. Well, the one that you're talking about, it was a drug bust at a biker bar in Southeast Portland. And when I pulled up, the perps were all on a couple of sofas that were along the wall. And it was a disconcerting thing to walk in. I see the perps on the couch, and all law enforcement, they are in face masks. They've got balaclavas on, or whatever those things are called. They're like ski masks. And I was instantly alarmed. Well, what the hell's going on here? So I pulled the commander over and I said, well, what's the deal? And he said, well, we're disguising our appearance because we fear reprisals from this group. I'm like, well, so great. Next month, when they see my mug in Safeway or a restaurant, it's going to be me they remember. Yeah. David, the guys, the perps, when I first walked in, they figured out why I was there. They just started chuckling among themselves. And then when they realized it was serious and the safe was going to be opened, wow, the profanity started coming my way. I wasn't used to that at the time. It was pretty intense. And the law enforcement, didn't make any attempt to shut them up. I don't know how they would have anyway. So it was one of those cases where, yeah, they're yelling at you and swearing at you and mocking you that MF and kid ain't getting the safe open. Well, of course I did. Well, it was uncomfortable, but it was a good learning experience, to just learn how to sail through, ignore the surroundings, and just do the job.
And kind of fixate. And like the theme throughout your book is you almost were like a doctor. So you would bring your own bag with your own set of tools and try to crack the safe without too many people bothering you. Can you talk about kind of the implements that are used in your field?
Well, the most valuable are our fingers, our hands, our hearing. Most guys that do what I do have much better hearing than I do. I have to use an electronic amplifier because I'm so hard of hearing. But it's mostly sight, hearing, and touch when we turn the dial. We don't need a lot of gear if we're going to manipulate successfully. Where we need gear is when manipulation isn't going to work and we have to drill. So we have a variety of drill rigs, as we call them. They're just machines, and their job is to give us a way of putting pressure behind a drill. When you're cutting hard plate in a safe or a vault, you've got to have pressure, or the carbide won't be able to get through, won't be able to anneal the hardened steel that's in there. So we use a bunch of different drill rigs. I've got, 10 or 12 different drill rigs. I only use 2 or 3 of them anymore. And most guys have a few. We've got our biggest investment, though, is in medical scopes. When I started in this business, we didn't have medical scopes. We had flashlights. And when Champion came out, the spark plug people, when they came out with a spark plug flashlight, which was basically like a doctor's otoscope, a cheap version of an otoscope, we were thrilled. It's basically like having a flashlight with a little magnifier, but all you could see was wherever your hole was. And the beauty of medical scopes, when they came out a few years later, is that you can look in any direction you want. There are straight view medical scopes that look straight ahead. There are right angle medical scopes that are very much like periscopes. They look at a right angle. And there are 30 degree, 45 degree, 50 degree, 70 degree, 110 degree, 130 degree, any angle you need, and we use them all, you can get in high-end medical scopes. And then the third basic category of tools for us, just in addition to normal hand tools, would be things like drill bits. We're very picky. Professional safecrackers are very picky about their drill bits. And most of us prefer that we actually have a company in the trade that takes carbide tip drill bits and sharpens them on a diamond wheel to perfection. And they supply most professional safecrackers with drill bits.
And so you kind of had a kind of a small community where you're writing a lot of papers and sharing kind of information. You keep meeting up with different people in Salt Lake City or Minnesota. So you kind of have a small community, right?
Yeah, the safe and vault community is fairly small. In terms of the technicians, virtually all of us know each other in the U.S. There might be a few outliers that don't partake of the conventions or the social things that we sometimes do together. But for the most part, I have friends in the business in every state in the union and many around the world. On my website, I think we're in, I don't know, a couple of dozen countries. I run a tech support. I'm sorry. I run, in my part of my semi-retirement, I run a technical support hotline for professional safecrackers. And you have to be one to get in. I would urge everybody, don't try to apply to get in, because we vet very carefully. And if you can't document that you are in the business, you get turned down. I turn down people every week.
Gotcha. And so you're still kind of talking, but there's a vast array of different safes, manufacturer styles, technology. So you had to have a very broad understanding of that whole kind of, even from the times and the decades they've changed, you've had an understanding of all the different manufacturers, correct?
That's correct.
Can you talk about some of those manufacturers and different styles? Because you go through in your book, there's different bigger vaults, there's internal vaults, there's smaller safes. Like, you've done so many different jobs in different states. Can you talk about the variety of safes? And I mean, I think that's kind of goes into your books and your other authors that aren't like this, that are more technical manuals, correct?
Sure. The greatest variety comes from older safes. In antique safes, the time they were being made, say from the mid-19th century, for about 100 years, we didn't have a lot of standardization. So every safe and vault maker had their own template. They had their own locks, and nothing was the same. Today, everything is pretty much cookie cutter. We have what we call standard footprint locks, and you can take one lock off and buy a new one and slap it right on. It has the same mounting footprint. That was not true 100 years ago. You had to be extremely well equipped with a variety of different locks to do any replacements at all. It's much easier to be a pro safecracker in some sense today than it was back then, just because the variety. It was every safe manufacturer back then made products that were completely different than every other safe manufacturer. Whereas today, there's a template, everybody follows it.
Gotcha. And can you tell the listener too what a time lock is and how that was a common common problem?
Shortly after the Civil War was over, we had a rash of pretty violent robberies, armed robberies in the U.S., and they're a little different than what you might think. They didn't take place in the bank. They took place in the bank president's home or a teller's home. And there's a very famous story of one guy who was just beaten to, he had the hell beat out of him for an hour or two before he finally gave up the combination to the vault. This was in Massachusetts, and the bad guys, of course, took the combination that he had finally given them after being tortured, went and opened the vault and made off with about $800,000. Well, banks were in a panic. They didn't want their employees to be subject to that sort of harm. So they turned to Yale and to Sargent and Greenleaf and to other makers to produce time locks to go on the door. The way most time locks work is, think of them like having three little clocks that are independent of each other. And what we need is for one of these clocks to run down to zero before the safe or vault can be opened. What that means is, when a bank closes at night, typically today, a time lock has three movements in it, or three little clocks, and bank personnel approach the time lock One of them winds time. If you're closing up at, say, 6 o'clock and you want the vault to open at 8 o'clock the next morning, you wind 14 hours. So the winder winds 14 hours on clock number 1, 14 hours on clock number 2, 14 hours on clock number 3. Well, the person who's confirming is supposed to look over their shoulder and verify that they did indeed wind the correct number of hours. Once they do that and then shut and lock the vault door, it cannot be opened for any reason until time winds down on at least one movement. And the reason there are 3 is to provide double redundancy in case they fail. You don't want to be locked out because of a time lock failure.
Right. And so what that prevents is somebody going to somebody's house at 1 p.m. and saying, go open that safe. And they really can't do anything because it's out of their hands.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you'll notice when you go into even stores now, you'll see right on the front, say a 7-Eleven or a Plaid Pantry or even a bank. And you'll see a sign that indicates that the safe or the vault cannot be opened. That's on time lock and what have you. Now in a bank, it wouldn't be true about the vault because most banks leave the vault open all day throughout the business day. Not so in the case of a supermarket or a small store like a 7-Eleven. What they do is they will put the money, larger bills, in a drop slot, and that safe can't be accessed until the time runs down. Now, they don't usually use time locks in those safes. They use time delay locks, which aren't quite as versatile, but the function is the same, to prevent access by the bad guys and the good guys.
Right. And you've run into people trying, you're a professional, you've had maybe people in non-professional illegal senses trying to get into some of these safes. Can you talk about some of those attempts and what people think they can do with some of these safes?
Well, there are 2 different categories of people who might do that. One is the burglar. The burglar doesn't have permission. He's not attacking the safe with the consent of the safe or vault's owner. And the other category would be a locksmith or a safe technician. In the case of a burglar, when they attack a safe, it's usually wild and crazy with sledgehammers, oxyacetylene torches, pry bars, screwdrivers. They rarely do anything very smart to a safe. They'll cut the hinges and smash the dial off and break the handle. All that does is lock the safe up even tighter than it was before. The other category of the locksmith, unfortunately, not every licensed individual who goes to work on a safe has the requisite skills to do it right. We run into this a lot. All we can do is just try to nudge those people into training classes and what have you, to make them better at what they do so they don't make messes. It gives the industry a black eye when a pro makes a mess on a customer's safe.
Right, and you can make messes, and you've had kind of experiential moments as well, but you also said, I think you've opened 10,000 safes. Is that correct? Is that your...
That's a rough...
I mean, it's immense different types. Yeah.
Probably a little more, but I didn't want to exaggerate. Yeah.
And one of the interesting things about your book, I mean, you in a particular, is your kind of, your love of philosophy. You almost became a philosophy professor who earns his living as a safecracker, right?
Yeah. Had the timing been a little different, I would be teaching philosophy today. I was in college and grad school in the late 80s and early 90s. And back then, philosophy departments were having professors retire and they weren't being replaced. And those of us in the grad program were looking at this thinking, oh boy. And when I saw people way ahead of me in the program, done with their doctorate and just looking for a job, unable to get one, I was like, well, crap. Looks like this isn't going to work out. So I didn't continue on for the doctorate. I left after my MA for that reason. There just weren't any jobs. There weren't enough jobs. Now, I've talked with a few people that I was in the program with. Back one of them very recently, Deb Smith. Hey, Deb, if you're out there. And they did eventually land professorships, but I just wasn't in it for the long haul. And
you kind of had a relationship with Mortimer Adler, kind of a famous American philosopher, correct?
I did, just luckily. My dad was a blue collar worker like me. He was a truck driver. And yet he had this insatiable appetite to learn things. And he loved philosophy without even really knowing what it was. One day, on a lunch break, pulls his truck into Walden Books and grabs a Mortimer Adler book called Aristotle for Everybody out of the bargain bin. And he brought it home. And we were both just transfixed by this man. Adler is probably, I don't want to exaggerate, but he is easily one of the clearest writers in the history of philosophy. Sometimes when you read academic works in any field, the jargon, the lexicon of that particular field can be a little jarring for a non-specialist. And Adler figured out in about 1976 that writing with too much jargon is not a good thing. He was into effective communication. So he stopped using basically all jargon. And a reasonably educated person can grab a post-76 book of Adler's and understand it no problem.
Right. So he's the opposite of the obscurantist,
Yes.
Overly wordy philosopher you may not understand after you're done, which is kind of unusual.
He is the exact opposite of Hegel, who was the worst writer in the history of philosophy, in my judgment.
And you got
almost unreadable.
Right. And you got invited to the Aspen Institute through your relationship with him. So you kind of moved in some fascinating circles.
I just got lucky. What happened was I was so taken with this philosopher that I went out and got others of his books. One of them was called How to Think About God. Well, religiously, I'm an agnostic, and I've been an agnostic for most of my life. But I'm fascinated with arguments for the existence of God. I'm fascinated by theodicies, people's attempts to square the existence of evil with the existence of God. And when I read How to Think About God by Adler, I just had so many questions. I just wrote him a very long letter. This is pre-internet, by the way. This is 80s. And I found an address for him and shot the letter to him. And I couldn't believe it. I got a letter back inviting me to come to Chicago and spend the afternoon with him in his office at the Institute for Philosophical Research in downtown Chicago and have him answer all these questions, which he did. I went to Chicago and I sat there. I was a debater in college. I was a reasonably good debater. Now, my wife was much better. We were national champions, actually, and she was Speaker of the Year for the whole country. She did the same thing in law school. She won the moot court nationals with her NYU teammates and won every single speaker award herself. So I don't have any pretenses or any illusions there. My wife is the speaker in our family, and you watch her recorded appearances before the Supreme Court. She's really something. Anyway, she's a great gal. And back to Adler, even with my debating background, I mean, he just mopped the floor with me. I came at him respectfully but firmly with my objections and my follow-ups. But man, he was on another level entirely.
He was, yeah. I mean, sorry, please continue. Please continue.
At the end, when he stayed, and it was probably early evening by the time we finally finished. And he again and again wanted to make sure that, is that all? Are we done? And finally we were. And then he invited me to be his guest at his Aspen Institute seminars. I was a blue collar young guy at the time. I couldn't afford to go to Aspen and sit in his classes. But as his comped guest, I did for many years.
That's cool.
And it was really, really a blast.
It's a great story. I mean, I kind of got the sense that kind of your outside interests in philosophy and music kind of kept you kind of mentally pliable for your safe cracking kind of, the solutions to all these problems. Do you get a sense that helped kind of distract you or kind of keep you more pliable? These kind of outside interests? Yeah.
That is a really great point, Bill. If I were dictator of the country, one of the things that I would do is make a basic philosophy class absolutely mandatory at every high school in the United States. Why would I do that? Well, when you take a philosophy class, one of the things that you learn early on is it isn't nearly enough. It is not enough to have conviction that your side in an argument is the right side. When you write a philosophy paper, almost every philosophy professor will require that you consider the very best objections the other side might bring to bear against you. And you have to do that. Well, when you do that enough times, you'll end up having a much greater appreciation for the other side in an argument. They aren't idiots. They're not immoral. They're not morons. They're perfectly smart people who have different priors than you do, and they've developed reasonably good arguments. Now, sometimes we don't have the proper amount of respect for those, but when you have to give a rendering of the other side that is so good that they would say, yeah, fair enough, you've done it right. And it's just, that's missing today. I don't want to go off into the culture wars, but man, the conviction that I'm right and other people are wrong runs so strong in so many people now. I think philosophy is probably the best check against that kind of intellectual arrogance. Hubris is everywhere, and it oughtn't be.
I agree, totally agree. And you're kind of, these are kind of like mind. Each safe has its own solution. So you kind of really have to. It's kind of like a mental exercise, don't you? Isn't that challenge kind of what kept you going for those decades?
Absolutely, yeah. When a group of pro safecrackers, when we get together and have drinks or dinner or whatever, we never talk about what was inside a safe. That just doesn't interest us. But one thing that we've all noticed is that when we talk with relatives or with friends that aren't in the business, that's the part that interests them. Well, what was in the safe? Well, I don't know. I didn't look. Well, that was the good part. Well, to a safecracker, what we're into is exactly what you said. Safes, you might consider safes to be like a Chinese puzzle. And it's just fascinating to try to figure out how to get the puzzle, how to solve it. And it's a great feeling. The dopamine hit that you get when you swing the door, it never stops. I've been in the business. It'll be 50 years next fall. And I still get a thrill when I turn the handle and pull the door open. It's still a super thrill. There's nothing like it, really.
And can you talk maybe about some of the more difficult cases you had and what are the more simple? Because some people may not know how some of these safes are really easy to crack and some are very hard, right?
Yeah, some of them are super easy. I rarely get those. I don't interact with the general public until I'm there to open the safe. I'm not the guy that they would find looking on the internet or looking for an ad. I don't advertise, never have. All of my work is by referral, but many of the companies that refer difficult jobs to me are quite capable of doing the easy ones that you're talking about themselves. So consequently, I don't have nearly as many stories of the super easy openings that a lot of my colleagues have, for that reason, that my work is referral only and I don't get the easy ones. Darn it.
Gotcha. So you have the tough ones. So you get handed the ones where there's a time frame or these things need to get done. Can you talk? You've cracked a lot. A lot of people want to know about the contents. You have opened some with some very interesting contents, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like sharing any of those stories, or maybe some are too graphic? I don't know.
There's so many. What we see, there are basically 3 or 4 or 5 categories of things that we see in safes. Obviously, cash. And most of the time, cash is kept in a bank bag or wrapped up or hidden somewhere. And you don't see it unless they actually unroll it or expose it in your presence. We'll see sexual paraphernalia of all sorts, and that's usually out in the open, oddly. Drugs, lots of pot. And you can often smell, if a safe full of pot, you can smell it from across the room. Bearer bonds. Oh, well, recently, a couple of years ago, this super nice gal from Idaho had come over to Portland, Oregon to handle her brother's estate after his passing. And my job that day had gone badly, and I was late getting to her. And by the time I got there, they already had the safe in the U-Haul. It was an AMSEC gun safe, and it was in her U-Haul where they were getting ready to head out and drive back to Idaho. So I whip in there, and we run an extension cord and drill the safe open. Everything's good. Safe is absolutely packed with all the things that we mentioned. Every category was hit. No need to go further except one thing. Bottom of the safe, there was a Topps 3D ring binder, 1952 rookie cards in baseball. Well, I was a baseball player as a kid. My favorite player was Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle's rookie year was 1952. My jaw hit the ground when I saw that. I thought, oh my God, no way. No way is there Mickey Mantle's rookie card in this book. So we started opening it and turning the pages. Sure enough, Mickey Mantle's rookie card and 299 others were in this book, this Topps 1952 rookie card book, in perfect shape. It had never been touched by human hands. I had no idea how valuable it was. I knew it was super valuable. I didn't know how much. So we went on the internet, and coincidentally, one had just sold on eBay for $2.8 million. So she was over the moon. I got a nice handsome tip on that job. We don't often get tips, but that day I did.
Well, that's cool. I mean, that's an interesting story. You also tell the story about people buying safes at auctions, or there was a safe somewhere in Portland from an old building. Like, it's almost like you're an archaeologist or something, uncovering these items that were formerly lost. I mean, it's really interesting how many. I didn't really realize the breadth of how many safes and how much necessity it really is. These banks really need you to come out and open these the malfunctioning safes, right? There's like time and cost and everything if they're not open, right?
Right. Yeah, bankers and jewelers tend to get a little anxious when they can't get into their safes or vaults, and there's pressure immediately. They need in, and they need in as quickly as possible. You know, their stock and trade is locked up. They can't really do business the way they would prefer to without getting into their safe or vault. And what was the first part of your question, Bill?
I was just saying that you've opened up so many different safes, and people have bought safes. They don't know the contents. It's like going to, it's a storage facility and seeing what's in there. You tell one story, Reno. These people bought something out of San Francisco that paid their their kids' college, so they were excited about the contents there. But also, you kind of cover a lot of films and movies where there's always safecrackers. And some of them you said they actually did a good job and some didn't, right? I mean, was it The Italian Job, Takes a Thief? What are the other ones?
Oh, there's dozens and dozens of them. Safecrackers are lovers, almost to a person, of movies with safecracking scenes in them. And we're of two minds about it. I'm not going to say we're hypocritical, because I don't think we are, but we're of two minds about it. And you can hear us, if we're together as a group watching a safecracking scene. If it isn't realistic, we safecrackers will go, oh, what a load of crap. That's not the way we do it. But if they get too realistic, we're like appalled. Oh my God, they're showing the general public how to open a safe. They shouldn't be doing this. And usually one of us will remind the group, so which way is it going to be, guys? Are we going to get mad when they're too close to reality, or are we going to get mad when they aren't real enough? So that's us. We're safecrackers.
You criticize them. You criticize them. What's the James Caan one? Is it A Thief? Is that the one he was in, where he was like burrowing with super high Fahrenheit drills or something? I just remember seeing that back in the day.
Well, that was the first movie that I know of where a burning bar was used, a lance that burns, about 8,000 degrees or so at the tip. That was impressive as hell, because they had only been out in a semi-portable version for a short time when they used it in that movie. I think that was a Michael Mann movie, if I recall right.
Oh, interesting.
Caan was great in it. That was a super cool scene when he used it.
Yeah.
A scene can be really riveting without reflecting reality perfectly. And we eventually just get over that and realize it can be a great movie even if they aren't doing it exactly the way we would.
Right. It's probably better that they're not exposing it to the public.
Oh, definitely.
We're at about 35 minutes. Is there anything you'd like to add, or anything that I missed that you'd like to wrap? I mean, you have this fascinating sequence. I don't want to tell the whole story, but you were involved after Prince's untimely demise, right?
Yeah. The most safecrackers have a specialty. And by the way, it's the reason that I often say there's no such thing as the best safecracker. The reason I say that is that there are a bunch of specialties. And the three big ones would be key lock picking. There are safes in the United States with high security key locks, mostly from Europe, in them. And there are specialists here. We have Phil Scherer, who's probably the world's reigning key lock expert out of Boston. We've got a spiking expert out of Boise, Idaho, Lance Mayhew down there. And these are guys, and manipulation. We've got guys who are unbelievably good at manipulating safes and vaults open. They're specialists. And no one is top dog or even close to being top dog in all the specialties. My specialty happens to be bank vaults. I've opened lots and lots and lots of bank vaults in a variety of different circumstances and malfunctions and what have you. So yeah, I got the call to go open Prince's Vault at Paisley Park after he passed. That's right.
Yeah, that's a great story. Really fascinating. People have to get the book to read that. I mean, that's like, if you don't want to talk about the contents that are priceless, that's probably like the holy grail in a priceless material. It was incredible. Really incredible story.
And you're right. The literal worth of what was in Prince's Vault dwarfs the worth of every vault and safe I've ever opened in my entire life put together. They're just, the estimates I've seen range from $200 to $300 million. That's hard to compete with.
Right. I mean, it's not even just the value of the music. It's just having his writing on certain stuff. People would buy that for, right, just for memorabilia thing. I've heard, well, we can get it. I heard Hefner had quite a vault too, or still does have a vault, but that would be interesting to get into his, because I've heard that all these rich guys have these panic rooms and vaults. So I think your career and other people's safe cracking career will be safe for the future. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Look, so long as human nature is slightly flawed, and it is, and people sometimes try to take things that aren't theirs, we're going to need safes and safecrackers. There's no getting around it.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it. And where's the best place for people to get this book, Safecracker?
Well, right now, probably Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Right, so you can get it.
Yeah, both of them have it in stock. We ran out a while back, and there was a little panic when we didn't have books to give to the booksellers, but we do now.
Good, so you're back in business.
We're back in business.
And do you have like a social media? Are you on Facebook, Twitter, or someplace where people can reach out to you if they want to?
My agent and my publisher have both pushed me hard to do more in social media. It's just so much of a mystery to me. I'm on Twitter, engaging in the culture wars usually every day, but I don't use it much for business. I probably should.
So people can reach out to the publisher here. I can't remember who the publisher of your book is.
But Roman and Littlefield.
Littlefield.
If they want the book, I would just tell them go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, and like I said, it has right now 44 5-star reviews. And you can just tell the first person, like, you have so much accrued experience and knowledge in this. It starts from, it's included in the book from the beginning chapter to the end. So congratulations. Really a fascinating read on my part. Again, the title of the book is Safecracker, a chronicle of the coolest job in the world. And the author is Dave McOmie. Thank you so much, Dave.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
Right,
thanks for having me on.
All right, stay there.
Bye.
Stay there.